got to bring her up. There she is. Whew, this book. Hello, my name is India and I read a lot, and today I have a triple whammy of a video for you. Today we're going to be going through my most surprising, most disappointing and worst books of 2024. I've narrowed it down to 3 each per category. I was thinking maybe doing this as like a separate video for each category, but I just decided, nope, I'm going to do it all together. I'm going to whack it out in one video, and that is what we're going to do. So I'll try and go and get it through as quickly as I can, but it might be a long video. So starting off, we have my most surprising books of the year. Now we're going to start off more positively. So most surprising, 9 times out of 10 are books that I didn't expect to love as much as I did, or the circumstances surrounding them were more surprising than I anticipated. It's a more positive category, this one. And to start that off, we have Reading Lessons by Carol Atherton. So I didn't study English literature after secondary school. I just went straight into creative writing, which I wasn't good at, and I did media and film and all of this. But one of the things that I wish I'd done was stick with English literature. But the only reason I didn't is I found that the texts that we studied and the texts that they were going to study in the future didn't really interest me. I loved An Inspector Calls, and Inspector Calls was incredible, but I didn't really enjoy Shakespeare that much or anything like that. So I wasn't really sure I wanted to spend another 2 years at college studying them. I then picked up Reading Lessons, and this was sent to me by the publisher, and any books that I mention in this video that were sent to me by the publisher will be listed in the description, so you know. But this is a book about a teacher called Carol Atherton who recontextualizes, even now, many years after they were added to the curriculum, why we still gain so much from these texts, what we can learn and apply to that in our current political climate, social climate, things like that. And also with some really interesting anecdotes of her time as a teacher, as an English teacher. And I went into this thinking, oh, I love literary analysis. I've mentioned this before. I love diving into books and analysing media of any kind. This will be really interesting. It gave me such a bigger appreciation for what we were studying at school and why we learned it, and it made me want to go back and read some of those texts. But yeah, this was just one that I kind of thought I was going to enjoy, but literally took me by surprise with how much I loved it. The next book, I don't have a physical copy to show you, but I will put it up on the screen somewhere. But that is The Thief and the Wild by Seann Barbour. So first and foremost, I really enjoyed it. I read it and I enjoyed it. It was a good book. Why it landed in this category is that is the second self-published book that I've read. I don't read many self-published books. I tend to read traditionally published more. And I was actually approached by the author himself to receive a copy and review it honestly. So I was really intrigued to see how this book was, and I was really hoping to like it. And just the experience from beginning to end and how good and fun the book was just so surprising and fun, and it was such a great experience to read the book. It was great to work with Seann, and his communication is amazing. So yeah, very unexpected, beautiful surprise with a great book. Now this is the first time I get to show my Kindle Scribe. Can you see that? Yep. The Spook's Apprentice by Joseph Delaney. This was a book that was chosen for my book group. So this year I ran a YA book group. I think it was August, it switched from YA to just general sci-fi and fantasy. And while it was still a YA book club, this is the one that was chosen. It felt very early The Wizard of Earthsea vibes, if you want my honest opinion. It felt like, yeah, the very beginning of The Wizard of Earthsea, and it follows the 7th son of a 7th son who's trained up to be a protector of the land, focusing a lot on English folk tales and folklore and things like that. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw it on the shelves, it was never a book that grabbed me. It was always something that I would think, oh, I'm not really the target demographic for that. It's not really something that I would personally read with all these hundreds of books that I own. So I'm going to give that one a skip. So when it was chosen, I was like, cool, it's good to try things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up. I was crying in a Cafe Nero by the end of this book. That ending, beautiful. This was just such an unexpected great read, because I'd written it off. I was like, this just isn't my thing. I think I'm too old for this. It was in the kind of slightly lower end of the YA category, and I was thinking, I'm 24. I don't think this is going to maybe resonate with me as much. It was so good. And the ending, if you read it, bring a little tissue. So we're going to get a little bit more negative now. We are going with my top 3 most disappointing books of the year. And disappointing tends to be books that I was very excited to read, or books that were incredibly hyped up, that I was really excited to see what has got everybody's attention, or really intrigued by, or I'm trying something new and I really hope it works out. So it's not like the worst book I've ever read, but it's definitely one that I had better expectations for. And the first one is Binti. So Binti is a book that has won many sci-fi awards. It is lauded highly, and I get why. Unfortunately, it just failed. It's that situation where something is so incredibly hyped up that when you read it, it's never really going to match your expectations or your own internal hype, because the hype is too much. Does that make sense? Like, it's never going to reach where you want it to reach because it's a non-existent, like, impossible level. You're putting too much pressure on one book. And that was Binti for me. I really desperately wanted to like it. Maybe it was too short. Maybe that might have been the reason why. I just remember reading it, finishing it, and being like, yeah, it was fine, but missing that kind of, oh my God, this is so good. This is why it won a bunch of awards. Now this one hurts me. This one gets into my soul. For those of you who already know me, I love with every fiber of my being the Fullmetal Alchemist series. It is the most formative manga series in my entire life. I love it so deeply. And I would recommend it to every manga reader, new to manga, like a seasoned vet. I love it. I'm also reading the author's newest series, Demons of the Shadow Realm, which is really good. I decided this year that I was going to try and read everything that she's written, and that meant trying Silver Spoon. Hiromu, babe, I'm so sorry. This wasn't for me. I love her art style. The art style couldn't save this. I don't know whether she personally went to agricultural school. It's about a boy that attends agricultural university, and I don't know whether she has a family background or a history in agriculture or what, or whether it was just like a special interest of hers. But my God, it was boring. It was just info dumps after info dumps after info dumps on just agricultural facts. It wasn't engaging. I didn't care for any of the characters. I didn't connect with them at all. I didn't even finish the volume. That's how bad it was. And it hurt me because I love everything that Hiromu does. I love her fantasy books. I was excited to see her enter the contemporary space. And no. So another use of the Kindle Scribe here. The last book on my most disappointing reads is Fragile Animals by Genevieve Jagger. So, bit of a story for this one. So for the last couple of years, I've been trying to read as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and branch out as much as I can. And next year's gonna be a little bit different. And in doing so, the genre that I read the least of is literary fiction. It's not really something I gravitate towards. I'm more of a plot-based reader than a character-focused reader, and quite a lot of literary fiction tends to be more character-focused. And I thought one of the ways to branch out and read more literary fiction is reading books where it's a little bit more, there is fantastical elements to it. So earlier this year, I read Meet Me at the Surface, literally pretty much at the very beginning of the year. I read Meet Me at the Surface, which is to do with Cornish folklore and things like that. I would highly recommend it. But it's a very character-focused, literary-driven novel, and it's so good. So when I requested Fragile Animals on NetGalley, I thought, I've read a couple of these this year. I'm going to nail it. And it's about a woman who's kind of running from her past. She's got a bunch of unresolved childhood trauma, and she goes to the farthest reaches of Scotland, and she meets a vampire. And I was like, give me this. Catholic guilt plus a vampire, this is going to be so good. I genuinely, why the fuck was there a vampire? Honest to God, I'm so sorry. Why was there a vampire? It would have been absolutely fine. I don't get, the vampire clearly represents, there's a metaphor to the vampire, and I understand that. Maybe I'm too dumb, but I don't understand where that metaphor comes in. He could have easily have been just a guy and the impact would have been the same. The vampire bit was the thing that I was most looking forward to. I don't get it. My favourite bits of the novel, because there were some really good elements of this novel, all the scenes from her childhood are done and written so well. I just didn't get what the vampire part, and I guess because I'm more of a sci-fi fantasy reader, I focus on the fantasy elements. But I remember reading it the entire time, and I was like, I don't get the point of the vampire. Like, what does the vampire bit, like, represent? And I still couldn't tell you. I went into this really wanting to love it. Really desperately wanting to love it. And I just was so underwhelmed. There are people out there that will fucking love this. Like, it's got its audience, and I'm really disappointed I'm just not the audience. And this is it. This is the penultimate. I've said before, I don't get super negative online. I don't know what it is. I think we've seen a lot of that recently of, you know, negative or not so great reviews, and then the reviews have been attacked or things like this. So I tend to not really get negative. I think as well, I'm very, very fortunate to receive books from publishers, and I always get nervous when I don't enjoy them. But I don't think in myself personally that I can be the best reviewer in the way that I want to be if I don't have the good and the bad together, if that makes sense. I've got 20 books of the best books I've read, which is going to be an amazing video shouting out about how amazing these books are. The last video was about my favourite crime books. Sometimes you just got to get a bit negative, okay? And as they always say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And there are going to be things that I don't like about books that people might like about them. The amount of times I've watched a review and someone has been like, oh, I don't like it for ABCD reasons, but those ABCD reasons are why I would pick up a book. So everything is subjective to the reader. Classic, if I love this book, if I don't like this book, doesn't mean you don't love it, if you know what I'm trying to say. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not a book worth your time. That's what the beauty of reading is it's subjective and it's different for every single person. Everybody's experience is different. But we are going to get into the books that I disliked the most from 2024. So starting off is The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke. I have tried to read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I think I got about 50 pages in. I couldn't get into it. I have yet to read Piranesi, and I still, in my soul, think this is the book for me because I love the Starless Sea, and a lot of people say if you like the Starless Sea, you'll like Piranesi. So I'm going to hold on to that. I feel a bit bamboozled with this book. I'm going to be completely honest. I feel a bit bamboozled. That screams novella to me. It's 64 pages, and that is the font you're going in with. And I must say, the illustrator did an amazing job. Beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And I will say that Susanna did an amazing job at making you feel wintry. I felt wintry for 5 minutes and then the book ended. Unfortunately, by the time I got into the book was over. And I feel a bit bamboozled because obviously this is a short story. Kind of felt like it's pushed out to be a little bit more, bit of a novella. I'm used to seeing novellas from Tor this page length. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. I also posted a TikTok video ages ago of me reading it, and I read it in about 7 minutes. And somebody said, oh, wow, I'm really surprised that you DNF'd this in 7 minutes. And I said, no, that's how long it took me to read this. And it's very poetic, and I can understand what people gain from this. It's super poetic. It's perfect for the wintertime. I just wanted more. I felt that we were literally at the cusp of something really, really good. And when I finally got into it, it ended. And I was like, well, why are we here? Why are we doing this? I thought the characters were interesting, but there was nothing really to them. There was nothing to the plot. The only thing, I liked the atmosphere, and Susanna Clarke can write really good atmosphere, but I didn't care for the characters. There was a non-existent plot. I was a bit confused by this book. And I'm really sorry. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me. And I do feel reading this and then reading it in 7 minutes and it was over. Did great for the reading count. Great for the Goodreads goal. And again, beautiful illustrations, I must say. Who did the illustrations? Victoria Sordon. Amazing illustrations. I just was really incredibly underwhelmed by this. And I don't understand why we put all of this effort into a book that takes you 5 minutes to read, of which there's nothing to the characters and nothing to the plot. So the last two books I also no longer own. Just don't have them anymore. I really did not enjoy them. Everyone Who Can Forgive Me Is Dead. That book. would make a great Netflix thriller. I want to start off and say it would make a great Netflix thriller. Was the most basic thriller I've ever read in my entire life. I'm so sorry. I guessed every single plot point, every single character motivation, every single twist and turn. I think from the first 50 pages, I said to my boyfriend, I said, I'm going to predict to you how this ends. And I was right. I think maybe I was wrong on one thing. It was just... I feel so bad. It's just so basic. It wasn't doing anything brand new. It wasn't doing anything shocking. It wasn't reinventing the wheel. It was just a book that I read, and I didn't like it. But it's about a woman who experiences a really traumatic event in her university days. It's been many years since then, and then someone she knows is creating a true crime documentary about what happens, but there are secrets to what really happened on that day that she doesn't want anybody to figure out, if that makes sense. And that like pull and the whole like TV show pull is so good. It just was such a basic story, predictable, and I really wanted to like it because I love a thriller, I love a crime. I have a whole, as you know, video dedicated to my favorite crimes, but it is a book that exists, and unfortunately that book was not great. But I weirdly think it would work, and I think the situation is, I think it would work better as a screenplay than as a book. I feel like you can make those plot twists work better in a screenplay format for a movie or a TV show than you can as a book. I just think it's in the wrong medium. And then finally, and I actually do think this is the worst book that I read this year. It also could very easily fill the disappointing category because I love the author, but it's definitely worst. I am currently reading and loving at the moment The Girl from the Other Side graphic novel manga series. I don't know whether it counts as a manga or as a graphic novel. I think it counts as a manga. But anyway, loving it. Set in this fantastical world where there is a kind of like plague or like illness that if it touches someone, they turn into monsters. So humans keep themselves very away from these plague infested areas, and it follows a monster and this little human girl that he's looking after. But there's something special about her and we don't really know why the plague exists. It's got really good horror elements, beautifully illustrated. Amazing. Love that. Love on the Other Side, written by that author. Put the pen down. Put the pen down. Close the laptop. Rip it up. I'm sorry. I am sorry. The short stories in this Love in Many Forms short story collection, the irresponsible, and I'm talking incredibly irresponsible age gaps, power imbalances, it was an incredibly uncomfortable read. And there was nothing that the poetic stories or the beautiful illustrations can do. There was some questionable stuff in that graphic novel that has me worried for the future of where The Girl from the Other Side is gonna go. It has wanting me, like, I'm pretty sure in January I'm going to speed read. I think I own every single book now. I think I'm just going to speed read through the series because Love from the Other Side was very questionable in its topics. Let's not wait for this child to grow up and be like, well, you're old enough now, I'm going to marry you. And it's not even done in a way that critiques it. It made me very uncomfortable. It was awful. It was awful and I gave it away straight away. I was actually quite disappointed because I think what's so good about The Girl from the Other Side is the very beautiful relationship between the monster and the little girl, the guardianship thing that they have, and like a pseudo father figure, and I think that's really beautiful and I hope that's what they continue with. But my God, Love from the Other Side, no thank you. No thank you, no thank you, no thank you. But that is it. Thank you for watching. The next video that I'll be bringing out, whenever that will next be, because I'm unsure how likely I am to keep things very consistent on a schedule, but it will be my top 20 books of the year. So that is going to be a little bit more of a fun video. It's going to be a long video, so you might want to like strap in for that one. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Like and subscribe and all that.